Welcome to the Class of 87 podcast, where the memories are a little blurry, the laughter's still loud, and nobody's quite sure how we all got this old. We're catching up with the legends of Bryanston High, and today in the studio we've got Rob Avice du Buisson, the rebels, the prefects, the heartthrobs, and the ones who tried not to get caught, to find out where life took them and what they remember, or pretend to remember, about those unforgettable years. So grab a drink, pull up a chair, and let's see what really happened behind those school gates. In the studio today, we've got, as always, Piet van Niekerk, we've got Jackie Daira, we've got David Hugo, and I'm Barry Bramley. Let's kick off. I'm going to hand over to Pete.
Yeah, Rob, we're going to start talking about opening and school memories and what you remember. You don't have to go into massive detail, but if you want, you can.
Sure, no problem. Thank you so much.
It might take a thoughtful response because if I remember you correctly, you're like the most built brown person I ever knew. I think you tanned a lot.
Yeah, I wish we had sunbeds in those days. It would have been a lot easier.
Yeah, to sit by the pool. Anyway,
yeah.
Listen, how did you arrive at Bryanston High School?
Left Bryanston Primary in 1979, 1980. I went to Bryanston High School and I started at Bryanston in 1980. Then my parents got divorced and I was scheduled to head off to Cape Town, which I did do. But then I came back again and lived with my dad up here. So I returned back to Bryanston.
What year was that?
For Standard 8. So I did Standard 6 year, then I left for Cape Town and started for Standard 7. And then I hated the Cape and the schools, etc., and the people, and I didn't like certain things. So I came back up here and Standard 8, I went back to Bryanston.
Just remind me, and it's not in my questions, I just wanted to remember, you had a cousin, a nephew.
Jean-Marc.
Jean-Marc, yes. How did that fit in?
So my father and his father were brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What is your first image of Bryanston High? First or second?
Now or then?
Oh, then. Yeah. And what do you remember now?
Well, I mean, I remember this large, massive, when I look at it now, I've been there a few times now, everything's very small. When I was young and small, it was overwhelming. In my opinion, it was like a prison. These big, huge concrete structures with, when I say discipline, there's nothing wrong with a certain amount of discipline, but you also need a certain amount of freedom. And it was like being in prison, these big concrete walls, and cut your hair and wear your tie like this and polish your shoes. And when I think about it now, I think I want to vomit. But anyway.
Well, I don't think you vomited at that stage. I think you might have rebelled, but maybe not vomited. Okay, what is the one thing you did at school that you probably wouldn't want your kids to know? And I actually met your son. What an awesome guy.
Yeah.
And you mostly share everything with him anyway, but there might be something you wouldn't say.
It's an interesting question. I actually loved school. But if there's something that I would not like about school.
What would you not want your kids to say you did at school?
Nothing.
Okay.
No, I'd like to be completely open and honest with my kids. And if they said to me, what did you do at school that you shouldn't have? I mean, there's a couple of stories when I think about looking back now, it was a bit raucous and like peeing in the teacher's blackboard and getting caught.
Okay, so nothing big.
Well, I mean, I was grabbed by the tie and by a 7-foot monster of an Afrikaans teacher who threw me out of the classroom. And I had a bit of a word with her and she tried to discipline us, took me to the headmaster and we got caned. I think it was 4 or 6 by Mr. Page, put our head under the table, got caned. Then after that, I was in Standard 6. We went back to the classroom and actually it wasn't me. I won't mention names actually, but he peed in the trough of the blackboard and I think I followed suit and she walked in and caught us. That's when the first...
Got a feeling I know where you went back.
The first headache started. I think it was quite interesting that I wouldn't want my kids to do that now, but in those days it was probably just rebelling, having some fun on the alternatives.
Okay, so on that, I'm hoping this is one of them. Yeah. If we put you back in uniform, what would you do differently?
Back in uniform?
Yeah, so maybe not be in the trough.
I would take the uniform off. No,
what would you do differently at school?
What would I do?
Yeah, differently. Like, how would you approach things? Is there something you do differently?
Are you talking about when I was young or based on the experience I have
based
now?
Based on the experience you know now, and obviously I actually had a lot of experience with, which we'll find out later with children and kids and that.
Sure.
But what would you do differently now?
I would tell my teachers to understand my learning mechanisms differently. Because I think each teacher teaches in a certain way based on their dominant sense, which was my research, which we'll discuss later. And I think that person, I would want them to teach completely differently.
And I think maybe it has changed a bit, if truth be told.
Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, yes. In a lot of ways, no. I don't think we develop children and individuals to their fullest potential in the schooling environment. That's my honest opinion.
Any detentions, suspensions, or near misses we should know about? Actually, fuck it. Can you limit it to 10 minutes?
No, I don't ever remember having detention at school. You know,
We just got caned.
yeah, we just, yeah, you know, if
that's
we
fair.
were naughty,
Yeah.
we would be sent to the headmaster's office. We'd get caned. We'd come back, and that was it.
Yeah, fair comment.
And we'd pull stripes in our ties and count how many times we got caned. You know,
So, final question for this section. Did you go on matric vacation?
no,
And okay, well then you just defeated that one. Who did you go with?
no,
Nobody.
no.
Why was that?
I didn't want to be a part of the whole clicky thing. When I say clicky, I wasn't. We went on Felt School. We went on leadership camps. I loved all of those things. We all voted for certain individuals to be certain parts. And when I started realizing the internal politics at school, in the teachers, what did they call that classroom where they all sat? Staff room, in the teacher's staff room. You know, when I started realizing the politics that were behind the teacher's staff room doors, I wasn't just going to rebel. It wasn't about rebelling. It was, I just didn't want to be a part of that whole.
So if I may ask, what did you do after you left school? That December?
So when I left school, I was actually asked to leave school and go to the Air Force because I had failed twice. And I was of age already then, so I had call-ups to go to the Army, to the Air Force and the Navy. So I was told, you know, that's it. You're not going to go and study now. And I also didn't have matric with exemption to go into.
Okay, well, I just wondered in that December.
Yeah.
Because actually, if I had to think, I would have thought you would have been one of the Oaks going off on a big party.
No, not at all.
South Broom or something.
No, I was actually an intake in the middle of the year. So we wrote, you know, we were hauled out of school. I actually went to the Army, and I had to do my 2 years, 1 year in basics, or three months basics, 3 months second phase, 1 year border, and then 6 months back, you know. And then when I came out of the Army, I actually wanted to go and study psychology. But you don't have a big enough matric. You needed to have a pass mark of X. And I went to Pretoria University, and they said, well, the only way you're going to be able to get into varsity now is either go and study something else, or you got to be over the age of 40.
Well,
Believe
listen,
it or not.
you're going to still tell us how you got that be called doctor. But we're going to pass you on to...
Hold on, before we pass
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
Rob, I just want to clarify all of this. You said you started school in 1980. This is
80 in Bryanston High School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the class of 87. So there's a 7-year period here.
I failed twice.
Okay, I know I got that. I just wanted to know which year you failed, because when he asked about matric vac, how many matric vacs could you have gone?
No. So I did standard 6 at Bryanston. Then I went to Cape Town for standard 7. Then I went back to Bryanston for standard 8. Then I failed standard 8. Did it again. Did standard 8 again. So I did standard 8 3 times. Then everybody in the room here caught up with me. And then I went to 9 and then matric. And
We
then
caught up with you and Brian.
yeah, then I went to 9 and Ryan and Rodney.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I left. Then I went to 9, got through 9, went into matric, and then went to the Army.
Okay, I think I'm going to pass you on to Barry.
Sure.
Right, Rob, this section is called the rapid fire. The goal of the section is just to get you to answer the questions as quickly as you can, one sentence, maybe even one word. We'll run through them quickly, don't have to go into details, and we'll clean it up afterwards anyway. So here we go. Who are your closest friends at school, and are you still in touch with them?
Mark Joffe, Harvey Smythe. Harvey Smythe I still see. We still speak all the time. Unfortunately, Mark's passed away.
Were you more of a rebel, a teacher's pet, or somewhere in between?
Somewhere in between.
No, sorry, I differ on that. You must be a rebel. But
Well, when you say a rebel, we all rebelled in some aspects. And teacher's pet, I did have some teachers that I was their pet and other ones that hated me.
only
And
is
vice versa.
Did you ever pet any teachers?
Pet as in
did you ever
have a
pet
little
any
pet and
teachers?
throw a leash around their neck and do kinky things? Or did you?
I think you're gonna
And
have to-
is that in school or out of school?
Oh, we don't have enough time for all of this. What subject or teacher stands out the most, for good or bad reasons?
I would say Mrs. Skinner. She was great. And I'd say Mr. Essex Clark was my favorite teacher because he understood the boys.
For real?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought he was a great teacher.
Did you have a high school crush, a fellow pupil, or even a teacher? And did they ever find out?
I had Leanne Cool and myself dated at school. I also had a crush on Joanne Reynolds. But Leanne Cool and I think, were the items. You know, that was my crush at school. Really.
You ever have a crush on a teacher?
I had a not a crush, but I quite liked Colleen Ravenscroft. We got on very well. And, you know, after school, we saw each other and went out and partied, and she moved to Cape Town, and we had some fun, and it was good stuff.
Yeah.
There were some other teachers like Mrs. Cohen that, our eyes wandered, but unfortunately that's life,
What song, smell, or memory instantly takes you back to 1987?
The smell of oranges and chlorine going in the pool at school. And tutus being shot at the range, gunpowder. And the stinky smell of underneath Roy Page's desk when he used to cane us.
I got a feeling you were there too much.
Rob, were you ever bullied by anyone?
Yes, quite a bit at school. More primary school, but a little bit at high school. Not when you say bullied, people pushed us around. We retaliated and we stood our ground. And I think that set the parameters between a lot of people. Obviously, then I gained some friends and we lost others, But when I say, bully is a vast word today. Bully is an easy word today. In those days, it was you dominated by pushing people around, or you try to assert yourself as a macho man. And a couple of people did that at school. I've dealt with it my way, If it wasn't going behind the locker and getting a hiding or giving a hiding or wherever it was, we stood our ground at school,
Did you ever bully anyone?
Yes and no. When I say bully, I'd never grabbed anybody and beat them up. I never pushed people around. I never belittled them and called them silly names. But we did have fun. There was a couple of us in the woodwork class where we would play games like the hunter. And one person would take a long wooden stick and he'd be the hunter. And then you'd have two birds flying around and the hunter would shoot the bird. And whoever was the closest to the bird would just slap, and whoever got hit, then he became the hunter. So, some guys would say,
I'm grateful I never
so some guys would say, well, you guys were bullies, and other guys would say, well, we were playing games. You know what I mean? So,
and then Rob, do you remember Elon Musk from school?
So I remember him from school. I was in standard 9, I think it was, and he was in standard 6 when we played chess together.
Played chess?
Yeah, I was the chess captain. I played chess for many years.
No wonder you were bullied.
Wow.
In the beginning, But so I remember playing chess with him. Small guy, young guy, cute guy, nice guy. You know what I mean? He was a small guy. Obviously strange in his own ways, but also dynamic in his own ways. I mean, we had a couple of games of chess and he was clever, But I remember him well,
All right, I'm going to hand you over to Dave now. He's going to look at life since 1987.
Okay, Rob, as Barry said, we're now going to touch on the path life took you after you left school in 1987. Can you just give us a little bit of an idea of what you've told us that you went to the army? And,
so I went to the Air Force. I was 3 months at basics, 3 months in second phase, then almost a year on the border. And then I came back and became a driver, security driver with Magnus Milan, Brigadier van Erp, General van Logenberg, Vice Admiral Syndercombe. We used to drive them around. And after that, I wanted to study. And I wanted to further myself with education. And obviously I went to Pretoria University and I asked if I could study psychology. And they said, no, you don't have a matric with an exemption of X, Y, and Z. So you'll have to build up credits. And so I started, I went to Vega School of Advertising when they first opened the very first year. And I studied brand advertising and communications and got my first diploma after 2 years. And then the bug bit me and I did another diploma. And I had to build up enough credits to get into the next program, and we went from there.
Okay, and you were working while you were doing all of this, the studies, or were you a full-time student?
No, I studied every Tuesday night, Thursday night, and Saturdays. I was working for my dad and my uncle at a company called New Hair, DMO Agencies. We sold brushes and scissors and shampoos and perms and tints and lotions to all the hairdressing salons and pharmacies. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I moved down to Cape Town and I became the manager of the Cape and took over the business down in Cape Town. And I was there for a couple of years.
Okay. And apart from Cape Town and Joburg, you haven't lived anywhere else in South Africa or overseas?
No.
I remember
after army, I was overseas for a year.
Yeah.
So when I finished the army, we traveled, myself and Warren Peterkin and a few of us went overseas for a year. Went to Manchester, went to Richmond and worked in construction site, got some money together, went to Austria, then Switzerland, then Germany, then France, and worked our way around and just gathered that experience. Went to the beer fest in Germany down the Rhine on boats, and that was great fun, just young and getting out and about and getting some experience. And I worked for a construction company there for quite some time. And that actually was very helpful for me because I learnt a lot of trade there, where you can wire things, build. I mean, hence the house you see today. I'll show you around later. But I built most of this myself with my own hands,
Yeah.
Obviously, I get the labor, but you're laying the bricks and everything and plastering and everything you do yourself, most of it.
It's probably a good time I remember bumping into you at Kevin Cox's Pro Dive in Mauritius, I don't know, probably like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good time just to ask about the Mauritian connection.
So it's very interesting. I started, as you can see on the wall, I mean, I started diving when I was 15 years old. What a lot of people don't know my history is when I was young, and you talk about being bullied, I was raped and molested at the age of 15 when my parents got divorced. There was a guy in Cape Town, I won't mention his name because karma will get him. And I did many years later. I went back and found him and nearly threw him off his boat. And it happened, I was living in Cape Town and he offered me a job working on his boat, taking people out to sea and coming back. And one night coming back, it all happened and it got ugly. And I dealt with that many, many years later. I went down and approached him and I handled it in my way. Right then and there, when I was 15 years old, my parents were getting divorced. I also drowned when I was a kid. I was 2 years old and I couldn't read and write until I was about 14, 15. And in those days, they didn't test for it, hence me wanting to study psychology and work with children. So I went to remedial classes in school and I used to go after school every day. Teachers used to say to me at school, "You're stupid, you can't read, you can't learn, you can't do this, you can't write, you can't do this." But nobody ever asked, did anything happen to you when you were a kid? Did you drown? Any parts of the brain damaged, etc. So I was going to remedial school in Rosebank and the teacher was smacking the desk with a ruler saying, "Oh, you stupid, can't you read this? Look at these kids at 5 years old, next to you can read and you can't." And that's another reason I wanted to study psychology and work with kids, But I remember my mom dropping me off one day and I was so angry with going into these classes and being belittled that I said, "Can I have some money for sweets?" And she gave me money for some sweets and a cool drink. And I went into the cafe and there was a pinball machine there and an asteroids machine. And we used to play pinball and asteroids. So I never went to classes. And then there was a CNA there and I went in there and I saw this Asterix and Obelix book and there was Tintin books. And I asked my mom, "Please, can you buy me those books?" Because I saw these captions and all I wanted to do was know what they were saying. And they bought me the series of Tintin and Archie and Asterix and Obelix and all that. And I came home and I would just force myself to learn and read how to read these books. And so I self-taught really how to, to adapt to that. But back to the dive center, when I was 15, obviously my parents were getting divorced and it was a horrible separation. And my dad had a girlfriend and didn't want me. I didn't really want to be in that house environment. And my mom also was remarried and I didn't want to be in that environment. So I was always staying at friends' houses in and out of home and trying to cope with school and all these sort of things. And I met a guy in the Hout Bay Harbour who said to me, he was offloading a little rubber ducky and I said to him, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Yes." And I put my BMX bike, because I used to get on my BMX bike and ride down to the harbour every day and ride in the forest. He took me out to sea and it was a 22-meter dive. He dived off the back of the boat. Down he went, came back up with a plate. And I said, "What the heck? I want to do that." So he said, "Well, let's go back to the harbour." He went back to the harbour, taught me how to dive in 2 hours in the harbour. And off we went back to the same wreck, And that was started my journey of diving.
Scuba.
Yeah, scuba. And then I went to Mauritius in 2007, 8 and 9. I opened up a dive center there called Dive Psychology and it's still operational today. And, I've been diving ever since. And I went up to every instructor level you can in diving because it became a passion of mine. And that was my one release to get over this trauma of this guy molesting me. And the next thing that got over that was riding my BMX bike every single day. It pushed me to ride and ride and ride and ride. And then in 1985, I went to Worlds and I won gold medal at the World Championships on my BMX. And that to me was the greatest thing in the world because it trumped what that guy had been doing to me. And that's made me even more want to study psychology and help people, because to overcome something, you have to have something more powerful than that little insignificant thing that happened was just irrelevant. There's lots of other things that I can tell you how to get over. I mean, I was lying on the beach in Clifton, tanning, like I spoke earlier about the tan, and I was fixated on my bod and my tan and trying to be somebody special. And I was lying on the beach and I peeled and I saw all the skin peeling off my arms and my legs and my back. And I looked in the mirror and when I got home and I said, that man touched that body, not this body, because that's old skin's gone. And that's what made me really want to get into psychology and help people, because everybody has trauma in their life. It's how you process it and how you process the information that gets you over that stuff,
And Rob, you've mentioned Mark Joffe, who's unfortunately passed away, and Harvey Smith, who I think is in Australia.
He's here now.
Oh, is he
going back in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I remember at one stage you and Len van Niekerk, who's also unfortunately passed away, you and him used to train a lot together.
Yeah, there was a few of us. So there was Richard Lecture, Tony Bianco, Harvey Smith, and myself. Joff, not so much, a little bit. Andrew Williams. We were always 5 o'clock at the gym before school, over the road from Bryanston High School. There was Rick's gym. Rick's gym. We were all training there, pushing weights together, pumping each other up.
I think Mark Adcock was also.
Yeah, Mark Adcock was another one, yeah.
And any of those guys, I mean, obviously Rich Lecture you still see, but any of the other guys that you keep in contact with?
Yeah, I still speak to most of the guys. I mean, whoever I can, I mean, obviously Andrew Williams, when he comes out, we see each other.
Yeah.
Tony Bianco's in the States, but it's difficult to get hold of them. You can Google them, but I mean, you drift apart.
No, you live life.
Yeah, but my close circle of friends, and then obviously when I left Bryanston, I went to Waldorf for 1 year, but that only went up to standard 8. So I came back to Bryanston for the sport. I don't know how they took me back, but they did. Obviously, it was for sport.
Government school.
Yeah, government school, yeah.
And Robbie, looking back, what do you think 17-year-old you would be shocked to know about who you are today?
I think if I look back now, when I was 17, I always had big dreams, big ambitions, and I always knew that I was different and thought completely different to most people, out of the box, always. And that's obviously from some of the stuff I've told you already, and there's more. But looking back now, I would have never thought that I would have. I mean, at school, when I wasn't lazy, but I didn't like the way that they taught us, And I would have never thought that I would have gone and perceived getting a doctorate and PhDs and studying and further studying. I mean, I'm still studying now. I'm going to Harvard now. I went to Stanford Business College, and so I've done a lot of my studies abroad, and I would never think that, when I've written a lot of programs, I've written a lot of books and journals and published them in Australia, clinical hypnotherapy journals, which I'll show you guys just now. So I would have never thought I would have been a published author or a co-author on different books, and I'm about to publish my own book probably in the next 2 or 3 months. By January, I want to get it published on life skills and motivational stuff, and I hope that every kid and every parent that reads it will understand the reality of what everyone else goes through. Never judge a book by its cover. I learned that lesson. I mean, I look at a lot of my friends today are people that I would have never been friends with. But that's because we didn't understand each other. And now we do. I hope that book, when it comes out, will help a lot of people to just grow within themselves from the ages of 5, 6, 7, right up to 50, 60, 70.
Yeah. And since school, could you sort of point to one biggest influence or turning point in your life?
I think the greatest influence in my life was when my son was born. 21 years ago. I'll never forget it. I had the agency for Ferrari. I was doing well. I had my Formula One car. I think you saw it downstairs. Yeah. The Schumacher 2002 car. I bought
you a trailer.
You did, exactly. And that trailer's in Mauritius. I sold it before I left there,
You made money.
Yeah, no, well, actually, it was too big to bring back. It was too expensive. So when I think about that question, when my son was born, I went to Australia twice. I went everywhere with him, just the two of us. I was changing nappies. He was 2 weeks old, flying on planes with me, 4 weeks old, 2 months old. Everywhere I went, I took my son. And that was my addiction. I didn't want to drink again. And I looked at this little boy growing up. I thought, I've got to spend every minute I can with him. I never want to be selfish by having a bubble. And I think that was the greatest moment in my life. Then, obviously, being married was my first. My son was second. My daughter was third. But they're all equivalent. I can't really choose one because everything is just unique and special, But I think that was the moment that really did it for me, and changed my life around. I realized that there's so much more to life than going out and being a good reprobate.
All right, Robbie, thanks a lot. It's now Jackie's turn.
Sure.
So where you left off with Dave is quite a good intro into what I'm going to chat to you about.
Yeah.
So you've already told us a little bit about your family, Rob. Anything more you can tell us about your partner, kids, pets, or anyone else who fills your home?
Yeah, so my home is filled with love. I must tell you, I met the most amazing woman on the planet, my wife. I absolutely adore her. Her name is Rajan. We got married in 2003, 29th of November, and she was the head girl from the Brit side. Can you imagine me at school thinking I want to marry a head girl one day? Crazy. But I met my wife. We got married. Her father was the headmaster of Becker High School. I met her in the October. In fact, I met her a little bit earlier, but we moved in together in October. November, December, we got married. The next year we had my son. It was just straightforward. I knew what I wanted. I was the happiest man on the planet. I absolutely love her. We don't argue, we don't fight, we get on, we laugh, we joke all the time. And one thing that my wife has taught me is that the problem with people today, and obviously through my practice and seeing people in therapy, is people don't evolve with one another and they don't grow with one another. I look at my wedding photo and I go, is that the lady I married? Because I can't really, it's not that you don't remember it, you remember it, but she looked completely different, as do I. So I've evolved with her, and that's my go-to, is my wife and my family.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. I love every minute.
It's incredible. Robbie, what's something you've learned about family or relationships that you wish you knew back then? And by back then, I mean when we were back at school.
If I look at my family and compared to my situation with my parents getting divorced then, what I've learned is that you have to grow old with your partner. You have to be faithful. If you want to be promiscuous and mess around, well, so be it, then do it. But then you got to face the repercussions, And I think divorce comes too easy for people today. People need to be more committed to their partners and their families. So I think growing up with a home that was separated and split up, and I love my mother, I love my father. They both passed, unfortunately, and they both had their unique traits and they both had their flaws, just as everybody else does. But looking back at their relationship, I don't want to point fingers at who was at fault. They decided to get separated. The problem is then when that parent meets a new partner, you are not welcomed like a child, no matter what anyone says. So looking back now, I've got a steady home. I've got a beautiful wife, beautiful children. And that's because of my learned experiences in the past,
Well, I must say, Robbie, you've spoken about quite a few things that have clearly been difficult at various stages in your life, but it sounds like you've managed to turn all of those around and take something positive out of them, which I think is truly admirable.
Yeah,
it
thanks.
really is. So you've already spoken about, like I say, quite a few difficulties. I don't know if there are any others that you'd like to talk about. Or...
No, not really. I mean, everybody faces difficulties. Your parents pass away, your friends pass away. I look back at school. It's interesting when I see the whole Elon Musk thing about being bullied at Bryanston. I still try and toil in my head who bullied him. Who was it? What was it all about? And what was the level of being bullied? Because I remember him being a great little chess player, but I don't, but everybody got bullied. I got bullied. Everybody got bullied around. You got bullied. I think you might have got bullied. You might have got bullied. You might have had a fight. You might not have had a fight, And I think that's what makes us all beautiful, special people today. If I look at bullying today, it's cyberbullying.
Absolutely.
You're a bitch, you're a dick, you're an arse, you're whatever.
Which I think in many ways is even more difficult to cope with.
So
it's sinister on a different level.
And I look back at school and I think if I see the level and the caliber of people that we produced at Bryanston, we've got some great human beings out there, beautiful people, successful. And I don't measure success by wealth. I measure success in what kind of a good person you are, that you've become. If somebody's a good, honorable, kind, loving, gentle person, I think you've got more wealth than anyone with millions and trillions in the bank.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Honestly.
And if you've got 5 cents in the bank and you give away 2.5 of it, then you're even a better person because you don't need more than that.
Those are very wise words.
Yeah.
Lastly, Robbie, my last question for you is how do you spend your free time these days? Any hobbies, passions, or quirks?
I play a lot of golf. I love my golf. Obviously, cycling I loved for many, many years. I think golf is my passion. And besides golf, my home. My home is my everything. If I'm not in the garden, I'm painting. If I'm not painting, I'm building. If I'm not building, I'm fixing. And spending time with my kids and my family. They're my everything. And obviously, I love doing what I'm doing. I love research. I love working. I love working on your family tree. I love working on learning more and upskilling myself and studying for neuroscience and psychology and this and that. And the more I study, the happier I am,
Robbie, thank you. There is so much about you I had no idea about, and it's been absolutely fascinating hearing about you and your life. I'm going to hand over to Barry again.
Thank you.
All right, Rob, we're going to talk about work and purpose.
Yes.
So if you were at a cocktail party and someone came up to you and asked you, what do you do for a living? What words would you use to describe your work?
I'm a behavioral specialist. I work with human behavior. I work with children, I work with families, and I work with corporate companies. I look into, if it's a corporate environment, I'll go into the corporate environment, work with HR, understand all the issues they may be having with certain people, have a look at their behavior, what's driving their negative behavior in the workplace, and I draft and implement training programs around that, and then we execute them within the business. If it's family therapy, people send their children, or they come and talk to me. There might be alcohol issues, there might be smoking marijuana, there might be drug-related issues, there might even be issues that they've had with molestation and rape and abuse and things like that. I can work with those children. And I work with parents, because often children come and sit and talk to me, and I find that there is an issue with parents or another member in the family, and we just try and look at the family dynamics, and we do training programs for them, and we help them and work with them.
So it's about adjusting behavior towards something more positive that serves them.
Well, yeah, in a nutshell, my work that I use is, we have external behavior. We then internally process that external behavior based on our life experiences and using our senses, our vision, auditory, olfactory, gustatory, etc., etc. So we use our senses to judge what's happening externally, and that changes our state to a state of happiness or sadness or anger or love or whatever it might be. And I've always found that with most children and with most adults, with most humans and people, we have a very dominant sense. It's either our visual, like now, if you're very auditory, you can hear the car driving past and it puts you off and you lose focus. And that's what happens in classrooms, and that's what happens in relationships. You know, I might be talking to my partner and she's not very auditory and she's very visual and she's watching steam coming out of the kettle. And I think she's not concentrating. I then have a go at her because she's not concentrating, but it doesn't mean she's not. And that's exactly what we're talking about in the school environment. You know, it's the same thing happens. Teachers teaching, I might be very kinesthetic and I like touchy, and the teacher's teaching and she's speaking loud, and I'm looking out the window because I'm visual and I'm looking there, and she doesn't give me anything tangible to feel and hold. How am I going to learn about that product? I'm going to lose focus. Now I've got ADHD. Now I've got to get on Ritalin. Now I don't concentrate. Now I'm off to the headmaster's office to get cane. You know,
Next to us is anxious.
well, exactly. And then she's screaming and shouting, and then I'm all anxious, like you said, and I'm nervous, and I don't like school and I hate it. Meantime, they're just not teaching the way that I learn, and you know, so it's a big problem.
Rob, as you look back over your career, what are you proud of professionally?
Work-related wise, I'm proud of the fact that I've dedicated my life to research and study and understanding behavior, and then executing that with people and changing people's lives.
Right, one of the things we do know about you is that you've got lots of great stories. Have you got a funny work story? Just one, Robbie?
Yeah, I
story.
think of one. I remember I was working for, when cell phones first came out, I worked for a company called Radiospur. They were contracted to MTN and Vodacom. In fact, the first Motorola 5200 that came out, they gave it to me to go and sell. And I went to Forrester's Arms in Cape Town. It was the only one tower up in the country was next to Forrester's Arms. So I used to sit in the pub and talk on my phone and sell phones to people. But when they drove out of the pub, they couldn't get signal. But I was just making so much money. And, you know, selling phones to people that worked in one environment. And then they had a function at Killarney Racetrack in Cape Town. And we went there and they had a big tent. And then they said to me, please, will you pack up your car with all the drink in it and take it back to the office? And we packed it up, and we obviously had a few toots. And I was in this little Golf GTR, whatever car it was in those days. And we were driving out, and I looked at my mate on the left and I said, yes or no? And he said, why not? And we did a right turn and we went through the gate onto the track. And I raced my car around that track. I did about 2 or 3 laps. There were marshals running around, running on the track, trying to stop us. And we exited, and I could hear the radio, Wit Golfie, Fatty Wit Golfie. Anyway, we exited the track and we hopped on the highway, went home and delivered all the booze and went back home. And it was, I mean, when I look back, that was probably one of the craziest work experiences I had.
If you could go back to school, standard 9, standard 10, and talk to Robbie, well, at that time you must have been 22, 23 years old, right?
Yeah, which year?
But if you could go back and talk to that Robbie,
Yeah.
what career advice would you give that Robbie back then, knowing what you know now?
Study hard, my boy. Don't take nonsense from the teachers, you know. Stand your ground, speak your mind. But I definitely would have put more effort into getting higher marks.
All right, well, that's my section done. The next section is called Fun and Slightly Naughty, and there's only one of our team that can deliver that. So let me hand back to Pete.
Robert, it's been amazing listening to you, and I was actually so ready to roast you because I do have some memories of you at school, and you were a bit of a puss. But no, not at all. You never bullied, you never anything. But I think you were a little bit
some
of a...
people would say I bullied.
You
other
were,
people won't, you know.
I two things that stand out. I remember there was a picture of you, and water was dripping off you, and you were picking up a shirt or something. It was still in those. You obviously did some modeling or something, because I know I was always quite jealous of your body and how good you looked, and I thought the girls all loved you.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, listening to your life story and that, I kind of thought I'll pull myself towards myself and not roast you too much. Though there was a little occasion at Felt School when you chased all the guys at the Oaks you caught, had to like slide down naked down the slide or something. Maybe we'll leave that one.
No.
Unless you want to.
No, well, not. I did. It wasn't catching. So actually, I've still got that photo. When we got to Felt School, they made us all.
It was cold. That's why I swore.
Eh? No, I mean, I've still got a photo of about 70 guys running around a rock naked, sliding down some rock slide, going into some pond. I've still got that photo. All of us boys standing there, kalkat.
Why?
I don't know, because I don't know. No, listen, I've got a photo.
Listen, I feel there was more into that. They said it was for the moss.
Yeah.
Stop the moss pulled off by
the rocks. And if we all slide down on our bums, it'll come the moss off, whatever. Yeah. So we were all sliding down there, all of us kalkat. I've got a photo somewhere in my house of about 80 guys running around Felt School naked.
But like I say, I always remember you as quite a cool oak, and I was quite jealous of you. But anyway.
Oh, no.
So listen, any secret talents, party tricks your classmates didn't know about?
Yeah, so I'm probably winning that gold medal at the World BMX Championships in 1985.
Yeah, actually, that's amazing. Wow, how did that never come out? Because I didn't even know that.
I think I'd faced so much stuff at school that people didn't know about, with this guy molesting me at the age of 14, 15 years old. Yeah, that was a horrible experience, and you couldn't talk about it to people because people wouldn't understand what you went through. And getting on my BMX bike with Brad Napier and myself riding, and Grant Maben and Kenny Illman owned a shop called the Fox Shop in Ramburg, and they used to sell
like
motorbikes.
Fox clothing.
Yeah, it was the Fox was the brand. They call it the Fox Shop, and they sold motorbikes. And I went there one day and I looked at these motorbikes, and there was a Rally GT BMX bike that they had bought in from overseas, the very first one in the country. And I went in there and I said to them, at the back there was a motocross track, and they said, look at this new bicycle that's come in here. And I said, can I ride it? And I took it out to the track at the back and I rode this thing around, and I was hooked because it got my mind off all this other external behavior that was going on. And I'll never forget saying to my mom, please buy it for me. And I bought the very first BMX bicycle, Rally BMX in this country. And I bought it for 300 Rand. My mom bought it for 300 Rand. I then sold that bicycle and I bought a red line bicycle with Brad.
That was quite a
it was quite nice, about 500 odd bucks. Yeah. And we rode these BMX bicycles around and we built ramps. And after ramping that heavy rally over a jump and doing 3 meters, I hit it with this mongoose and I did 6-7 meters, whatever. And then I said to my dad, they obviously saw talent in me, and I said, I want to go to the Worlds. I got sponsored by GT BMX and BMX Action, and I bought a GT BMX for 1,000 Rand, and they sponsored me my kit and my everything. And I went to the World Champs, and the two guys that were our rivals were the Gilmore brothers from Redline, and they had lived in the States. And they came here, and I won 4 out of the 5 heats, and I won a gold medal. So all that stuff trumped the negative stuff in my life,
Look, I kind of thought you would say you could drink a beer with your nose closed in 2 seconds. I
didn't drink till, I obviously had the odd little pint here and there, but I didn't drink till I was about 20.
So besides in Killarney, and I know exactly how you got on the track because you still have to cross the track now when you go home, because I'm at the track quite often there at Killarney. So I know exactly what you're talking about. 100%.
Yeah.
Is there anything you could have considered criminal that you did back at school?
No, nothing criminal that I can think of at school.
Which teacher would you want to have a drink with now, and what would you ask them?
I had one the other day with Mr. S.S. Clark, what a great guy. If I could, I remember there was a teacher who was our RI teacher, Mrs. Pretorius. Haven't seen her for years.
Oh, you're going to turn or burn.
I used to train with her and do gym with her in the mornings.
She was
very strong.
Yes.
I wouldn't mind seeing her again because I've got good memories.
I so remember of her. She used to sit in front of of our class and say, don't start that fire.
Yeah.
Because once it's burning, you can't put it out. Meaning don't have sex or whatever.
Yeah. And
I was desperate to have sex limited, but anyway.
And what I loved about her, obviously not only the gym aspect side and seeing her in the gym pumping weights, she showed us a video once about Nostradamus.
I remember that, actually.
And I absolutely loved Nostradamus, watching that, because it was just out there for me. And I was already out there to the point where half the stuff that we talk about is, I knew I was completely different. So that sort of stuff.
Actually, I remember that video 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved that so much. And I was always told, you can't concentrate at school. You're dyslexic. You're at remedial school. You can't read. You can't write. But when I saw that, I loved it. So if school had showed me videos on hearts and anatomy and physiology, I would have passed with flying colors. But it was the learning disability that I had, not the visual disability.
There were a couple of books going around in school that had anatomy.
E-books.
But they came from overseas.
Yeah, Asla.
Yeah. What was your go-to outfit in the late 80s?
Pink Instinct pants.
Okay.
These exact same Vans I'm wearing now, because they were one of my sponsors at BMX. I still wear these same shoes. And a pink Gotcha shirt. Gotcha and Instinct.
Yeah, Instinct.
And they had those Instinct pants with the little drawer, the white.
Yeah.
That was my go-to kit.
Okay, well, listen, that wasn't quite naughty and that, but was just like this whole discussion has been. It took it differently, but it was awesome. I'm going to pass you on to Jackie now for some more rapid-fire questions.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, Robbie, I'm going to run through the next 6 or 7 questions very quickly.
Sure.
I just want you to answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
If you had to describe your life since 1987 in a headline or one word, what would it say?
Research guru.
Do your children think of your 80s photos as cool or cringe?
What the heck, Dad? Rolled up sleeves. I showed my son a picture of me in matric with my rolled up sleeves, and I had this Volkop curly mullet hairstyle. So that's coming back into fashion. He says, Dad, you're quite fashionable. I said, dude, if I look at that, I want to cringe. No chance.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point.
Yeah.
I think I get more cringy looking at my
kids
photos than my kids do.
and that big curly hair, like those big afro hairstyles. I mean, my goodness.
Robbie, who at school did you think was most likely to end up making headlines?
Negative or positive?
Good or bad?
Can't say.
Okay.
I think we had so many entrepreneurs and things like that.
We know
it's
that
actually
now.
a nice question because
who did you see had that quality back then?
I can't answer that, funny enough.
No
I'll
worries.
tell you why.
Mm.
Because I think there were so many dynamic people and so many strange people, in their different ways. And when I look now, if I think back, who would have made headlines? I think like headlines for what? I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Okay.
Thanks for the question, but difficult to answer.
Who was the biggest class clown during your time at BHS? And this is one where you are not allowed to volunteer yourself as the answer.
Probably when we very, very small, when I was young in Standard 6 would have been Gregory Verco. Standard 8 sort of era. I think we all clowned around, to be honest. I think there was Richard Lecture, myself, Mark Joffe, Harvey Smythe. I mean, I think about the things. We used to collaborate and do it together to irritate teachers. Stand up, take blazer off. Next one, stand up, take blazer off. And when we got to the last one, the first one would stand up, blazer on. So I think it was a collective group to drive teachers moggy, So I don't think there was one clown.
You sound like a bunch of sadists.
No.
Never mind a bunch of clowns.
I think we were young and having fun, but we were also pushing the boundaries, Because in those days, teachers set such ridiculous boundaries, and we would just push the boundaries the whole time. And that was also us exploring our boundaries and our positives and negatives and where we could push, and exploring our own personality.
Sounds like lots of fun.
Yeah.
If we had to look inside your school bag in 1987, what would we find?
Nothing. I threw it in the dustbin. So I'll tell you an interesting story. Obviously, with my dyslexic and not learning and my disabilities and whatever, I'd failed standard 8, gymming, protein powder, doing all that sort of nonsense. And one Friday, I left my school bag in the quad. And on Monday, when I'd got back there, my protein powder in my milk thing had exploded in the bag. And every single textbook, book, and everything was absolutely stinky. I'll never forget. I threw it in the dustbin. And guess what? I went into class and the teacher said, "Where's your school books?" I said, "My bag, you won't believe it, but it exploded with protein powder." And I threw it in the dustbin. But I promise you, I'm listening to you. And guess what? That was the start. No, that was the start of me realizing that if I listened and I used my senses, not their senses that they want me to learn by, my senses to learn by, I can pass. And I aced standard 8, and then I aced standard 9. That's how I learned.
You lost all your books.
Yeah.
It forced you to
Was
pay
processed.
attention
It forced me to
differently.
pay attention differently.
Yeah.
And it forced me to learn and listen and concentrate in class, because I'm not focusing on writing and she's talking 15 words and I've only written 3 and I'm 6 words behind. Now I'm listening to all the words and I'm absorbing it. And that's how I learned.
It actually makes so much sense when you think about it, doesn't it?
Like you can't believe.
Thank you, Robbie.
Absolute pleasure.
Rob, we're now going to move on to reflection and legacy. But just before we start with that, I also have the fondest memories of Miss Pretorius. She was the one teacher, or one of the few teachers, that you actually had a sense that she really cared about the kids. Colleen Ravenscroft was another one that you mentioned, but she didn't just do that for a job. You know, you could see that she actually had a genuine interest in being there and in the children's lives.
Absolutely.
Robbie, if you look back, how do you think Bryanston High shaped you to be the person that you are today?
I think there were 2 aspects to it. The one aspect was the friends that we made that shaped us into our little groups that we formed and made us, obviously we learn from our friends, we teach our friends, and we grow that way. And it shaped me to be an individual that I am today. The teachers also played a role. Some teachers looked down on you and other teachers put you up there and praised you. I remember Walter S.S. Clark saying once when we came back from leadership camp, he said to me, I want to talk to you. And he pulled me aside and he said, that everybody voted who they wanted to be head boy, and I was voted. He said to me, most people voted you to be head boy of the school, and it was put down by other teachers. That always stuck in my mind, because I try to lead by example in a good way, not always in a negative. So I always wanted to just be the best individual that I can and lead by example, and I didn't discuss the things that had gone on in my life, but I wanted to help people learn. When I saw certain behaviors happening, I didn't like people being bullied to a certain degree. I remember when certain people got bullied, I would take the bullies and go and bully them myself. And then I was seen as the bully, because you're bullying that person, but you didn't see that person bullying that person, bullying that person.
And if you could go back today and say one thing to your younger self in matric, what would it be?
Stand up for yourself more with teachers, definitely. Teachers also bullied, verbally. So
I remember too, I'll never forget, Robbie, in about standard 5 at Bryanston Primary, I remember a very scary Zulu teacher called Mrs. Gibson. And she threw me out of the class for chatting to a friend. And she came outside and she absolutely lost her cool. But I mean, she went ballistic.
Yeah.
She was screaming at me and saying, carrots! I told them carrots. When they said, should we make Jackie Wilson a prefect? I said to them carrots. And it's such a vivid memory. It was like, that was the time when I was told you are never going to be able to do this.
Exactly.
And it's so impactful and so damaging.
Yeah. I look back and think to myself, I didn't see myself as the man of the school, but I also didn't see myself as the underdog. We all ran in our own circles.
Yeah.
Should I have been a prefect at school? Yes, because I was a good leader. So why couldn't the kids all vote for who they thought should have been a leader at school?
And Robbie, I think we've kind of touched on it, but if you had to go to Bryanston High and talk to the kids there today, what would your advice to them be?
The first thing I would do is I would talk to the parents and I would tell them that every kid learns differently through a different sense. Let your kids learn and adapt through their senses, number one. Then I would talk to all the kids and I would say to them, you all learn differently. Understand who you are at the core. Use your strengths to grow and don't harp on your weaknesses. Grow yourselves. Become good children. Stay away from pubs, drugs, alcohol. You've got your whole life. I mean, I look back now and I look at kids and I say, even to my own children, I say, listen to me, guys. Study, get a degree, go and work. Work until you're 40, 45. Make as much money as you can. Then you can go and drink and sit in the pub and travel around the world and have fun. Yes, it's important for kids to go and travel when they're young now, but make sure you have a purpose for coming back to something. Otherwise, you'll lose focus. And the problem is, if you give kids too much room, when I say too much room, they come out of school, you say, take a sabbatical for a year, go and drink and go and have fun. And then you can study when you come back. I can tell you half those kids won't come back and study because they're going to realize how much fun it is out there. And they'll just lose that. I've done it for 12 years, I've done it for 15 years, maybe 17 or 18, like some of us. But, and I think the problem with school is also, it's 12 years of the same repetitive stuff. Yes, there's foundations to be set for growth. If a person's 13 or 14 and all they want to do is become a surgeon, geez, can you imagine 7 years of, by the time they're 19, 20, coming out and being a fantastic surgeon, you still got to go study another 7 years, I wish that the education system would change. That's another whole subject.
Robbie, that concludes my participation. I'm going to hand you over to Pete for the final section.
Sure. Nothing from you, Barry.
You got me twice already, buddy.
I want you all 10 times.
Oh, we could go so far with that comment. Listen, it's been awesome listening to you. Actually, I usually chirp a lot, and it kind of didn't need it because you just kind of filled everything in. What I loved and gravitated to you, because you're very, very similar to me. Your son is like your everything. And I saw how you guys were when we were at the Bryanston High School there with Richard Letcher and Sloan Meatmark, and they did there for the cycle. And I just could see how you guys were. Look, his haircut maybe was similar to yours at school.
That's cool, long hair. Yeah.
Anyway, but that's awesome, and I really enjoyed seeing how you interact in that. In closing, we ask everyone these questions. That is there any 87 soundtrack that you'd like this podcast to end in, like as it fades out?
Probably something from Dire Straits.
Money for nothing and chicks for free.
Money is for nothing and chicks are for free. Send it. You've chosen it.
No, you have to.
No, I mean, anything Dire Straits. Money for nothing is great. Money is for nothing. No. The chicks are not free.
Yeah, that's how I want to say. They lie.
So let's play it.
They
because it's exactly.
Okay, and you know what? This is the last question, and we're asking everyone, and no one knows. And there's the game Finding Larry. I think it's Finding Larry, but
Finding Wally.
Wally.
Finding Nemo. Where's Nemo?
So, where is Nemo?
What about Finding Nemo?
Yeah, so I'll repeat that. So there's this game
Finding
Wally. So we're trying to find Glavkos Varkas. Have you any idea where he is? Take a flyer.
Wouldn't even know. I can't really remember the name.
You can't?
No.
You don't remember Glavkos Varkas?
I remember the name, but I can't remember anything now.
I promise you, if you saw him, you'll remember him.
Is it?
I think
probably, yeah. No.
Okay.
I've got good memories about a lot of good people, and it was interesting the other day to go through the yearbook and go, I remember the face, not the name. I remember the name, not the face. And then some people you just remember like that,
Well, it's funny doing this podcast as well, having the names, and you go, remember that face.
Yeah.
Don't remember the name.
No, I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. I really like the idea of how everyone can share their story, which is fantastic. I think we're all learning a lot about everybody. I haven't shared too much with you, but I've shared enough. Maybe you get a little bit of an idea about my background and some of my behaviors and whatever. I'm happy. I'm content. I've come to terms with everything that I've done in my life, what I've been through in my life. Are there a lot of people that I have regrets not saying things to? No. Because most of them I've made my peace with them, and I've spoken to them, and I've done my 10 cents worth, And one thing I do want to say to the alumni, and thanks for all your participation in this sort of thing, and I will put it out there to anybody who wants therapy or wants help, who has a child that needs therapy. I'm happy to do it pro bono to a certain extent, obviously, 1 session, 2 session or whatever. I really would like to offer my services to any member of our class year that needs help. And even we could extend it to an upper level and a downer level if we have to, a level down. But I would like to extend my services to them, because if I can take any of my learned knowledge and experiences and help grow people, or we've lost some good people this year from suicide, good friends, it makes me tearful actually, in our year that have passed away. If I could have prevented that, I would have. And I would love to just be able to help the next person who's faced with divorce, we'll go downstairs now and I'll show you some of my certificates so you can understand, and you can add it in after. I studied family and divorce mediation. I've studied child psychology. I've studied general psychology. I've studied online coaching, and I've studied neuroscience, and I've drafted programs and written books, which I'll share with you guys now. And you're more than welcome to take that and share it on the group, because I just want to help people. And I never, ever want to hear of somebody else committing suicide from our year that some of us could have helped, And when it comes to finances, I know I lost everything in Mauritius. I had to start all over again financially. So, when there's people out there with financial troubles, we will try and put golf days together and help people raise money if we have to. And if somebody needs money and you're too proud to ask for it and you're struggling in life, go to Barry or one of the people that are running this group and say, listen, I know the services were offered. It's completely confidential. It's discreet. And let's just get it out there and help people. I really would love to help people to not have the stuff that we've heard lately. It's sad, And I really want to say thanks to all of you for coming here and making this sort of stuff happen. It's beautiful. I mean, it's taken a turn, this group, I can tell you now, a year ago, I would have never done this. I would have never been a part of the Bryanston High alumni. I actually thought, let me go to one of these socials, and I invite everybody to come to these socials and participate in them and see the fun and the laughter and the 12 o'clock in the kitchen, sitting there all around talking crap about school and teachers and sharing our experiences and how we've all grown, how the family is growing stronger and stronger and stronger daily. If you never had a family at school, you've got a family within this group of people, and let's just all get together and help one another. That's what it's all about, And if you think I bullied you at school, well, phone me and I'll say sorry. And if I didn't bully you and you were a chop, I'll bully you again. And let's just be happy in our environment and our space, and let's love one another.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, Rob, I just want to thank you for your generosity and your offer, and we'll make sure that gets out there. But thank you for today. It really was. I have lots of misperceptions around you that have been sorted out during this last session. So,
well, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate your honesty and openness today. And
thank you so much.
Into your house.
Thank you so much, and it was good to see you all in my home. Thank you so much for coming and seeing where I live and meet my beautiful family. Yeah, thank you, man. I'm proud of it, and I'm happy.
And that's another walk down memory lane with a class of 87. Older, wiser, and still laughing at the same old jokes. Thanks for listening, and remember, you can leave Bryanston High, but Bryanston High never really leaves you. Until next time, stay cheeky, stay curious, and keep the stories coming. Get your checks for free.